Hello everyone, welcome to the PALEYFEST Fall TV Previews. I'm Jason Lynch, curator at the Paley Center for Media, and I'm delighted to be your host for this special conversation as we give you an inside look at the third season of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which premiered September 7th on AMC and AMC+. Norman Reedus, who plays Daryl, and Melissa McBride, who plays Carol, have been fan favorites for years, and it's been such a treat watching them navigate a new part of the Walking Dead universe this season. We're 2 episodes in, and I'm so excited to talk about what's next. Season 3 of Daryl Dixon began in London before our characters washed ashore in Spain, and it explores the effects of the Walker apocalypse in a new part of the world, as Daryl and Carol are quickly confronted with new characters, obstacles, and locations. Before we kick things off, let's take a look at the official trailer for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 3.
So where'd all the people go?
You're looking at him. I'm up. You're looking at the last Englishman in England. I couldn't sail the boat alone.
Says her name is. I don't think so.
Welcome to Solar del Mar. We need to protect my people. Our town was under constant siege.
That man there is the locale.
So the town offers up one of your daughters, and in return you get a truck full of guns?
They call it security. I call it extortion.
We're always fighting everyone's fights. I just think we should get back home.
Can't just do nothing.
Where's that convoy go next? Barcelona. You got a map?
Follow me.
We have to fight them. We gotta kill the next king of Spain.
First you survive what happened to you. And after time, if you're lucky, start living again.
Let's keep doing that. Let's keep never giving up.
And now I'm thrilled to welcome members of the show's cast and creative team. Joining us are Scott M. Gimple, Executive Producer and Chief Content Officer of The Walking Dead Universe, David Zabel, Executive Producer and Showrunner, Dan Percival, Executive Producer and Director, Melissa McBride, who plays Carol and is also an Executive Producer, and finally Norman Reedus, Daryl and an Executive Producer as well. Welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's dive right in. So, David, we're going to start with you. It's been so fantastic to watch Daryl and Carol discover this new world and this new culture. After 2 seasons set in France, what was behind the decision to have the 3rd season of the show take place in Spain?
Well, part of the idea of the series really was that the characters were on the road, were moving because they're trying to get home. So they're not settling down anywhere. And we just thought it would be a great change, an analogical sort of change in geography to have them find their way to Spain, because Spain offered a different palette, a different vibe, different history, different culture. And so it was a great way to kind of reinvent the show in season 3. And it just offered a wealth of opportunities for us storytelling wise, visually, and in every way to let Daryl and Carol sort of explore this new corner of the apocalypse.
So Dan, as we just mentioned, this new setting is gorgeous. You directed several episodes in France for episode 2, and all of the episodes we've seen so far here in Spain. And you've really been making the most of your beautiful and striking surroundings this season. Can you talk about the visual aesthetic in Spain and how this influenced your directing style for this season?
Well, we'd been pretty grey and blue in France, and we were filming a lot in the wintertime in the rain. What we hadn't expected is we'd be doing the same in Spain, that it was also windy and wet. It was, I think, one of the wettest years I'd ever had. but we warmed everything up in the palette. A lot of it was there already, the stone, obviously the desert scenes in later episodes, but we wanted to go for something that felt distinctive and different to where we've been before. So we did warm everything up in the color timing. But most of all, we wanted to take, we were going to the heart of the kind of land of spaghetti westerns. And we re-looked at a lot of the famous Sergio Leone westerns and the classic use of low wide angles and those kind of very graphic landscapes and horizon lines that we did there. And we wanted to echo that very deliberately. It's in the writing of David and Jason's scripts as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing to what Dan said, because it's interesting. I think in France, we were looking at a lot of French films and sort of French art films, and that influenced a lot of what we did in storytelling, and then what Dan executed so beautifully in directing it. And in Spain, we leaned into the idea of the spaghetti Western. A lot of them were made, most of them were made in Spain. And so that was sort of a conscious marriage of a visual difference with a different kind of narrative that the new location lent itself to.
Yeah, absolutely. So Scott, in addition to having this kind of new location, we're also really starting the season with a clean slate. We have Daryl and Carol, but then we have them surrounded with an entirely new group of characters. This also kind of means it's an ideal spot for people to jump into the series if maybe they knew and loved the characters from the mothership show, but perhaps hadn't watched the earlier seasons. How much of this was intentional as you think about kind of how people interact with all of the shows in the Walking Dead universe?
It was only intentional in what David had said, is just, telling a new story. But, with the Walking Dead shows in general, we try to reinvent them every season or half season, if we ever go back to doing 16 episodes a season. And so this was a reinvention for Spain. David, I know Norman had said this, they wanted to tell stories of a place. They didn't want an American story on different lands. And to really portray those places, you need people from those places, right. Actors from those places. And these are characters that are literally affected by the history of Spain. They carry it through to the story in a very personal way, though. So yeah, it's just us telling new stories as much as we can. But you're right. This is a perfect place for people to jump in who maybe haven't sampled before.
Yeah. So Norman, let's talk a little bit more about the changes this season. So as we all know, Daryl and Carol are like the ultimate survivors. But this season, Daryl really seems to be questioning his will to keep fighting as he keeps running and dealing with loss. He even says in the season premiere, all we do is run and fight. That ain't no way to live. Can you share with us a bit how you prep to play this version of Daryl this season?
Yeah, that dialogue was sort of introduced late in the story and kind of became a storyline within itself. And one of the good things about shooting the show and with this group of writers and this group of directors and actors is that it's always evolving, and we sort of evolve in real time. I guess being tourists in a foreign land is maybe that's part of it, but I mean, to play, that aspect of Daryl is I want him to evolve. When the idea of a spinoff first happened, like Scott said, like David said, we didn't want to do the same thing in a different place. We didn't want to pick up an American show and drop it somewhere. And we wanted it to evolve naturally. And I want the characters and my character to evolve naturally. So I want him to, how much damage can a person take on this show? I mean, they lose everyone over and over and over again. But I wanted Daryl to learn. I wanted him to, not only he and Carol, to take what they're looking at and the people that they're meeting and their experiences and learn from them and sort of experience new things for the first time, which is a big part of this show, but also I wanted Daryl to learn from the people that came before him, the people that he he went through this initially with. I wanted him to look at certain situations and be like, what would Rick do here? And what would Herschel do here? You know, what would what would Michonne do here? And I think he is doing that. He started off as such a hot-headed character, and as he's maturing, he's learning. And there's certain things that are happening around him that are giving him pause and letting him experience things that he's never had, that he's probably realized he's never going to get the chance to have. And, you know, especially with Carol, I feel like Carol is home, you know? So I think he's learning some things that maybe he didn't realize before, you know, and seeing her go through things, it's nice for him, her going through something that's nice as well. So, you know, to play that, you know, I'm living it, so it's helping. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then Melissa, you know, Carol on the other hand is you know, in a different place right now. You know, she seems to be very drawn into the Spanish culture, and especially Roberto and Justine's relationship. Can you talk about the appeal of this, the unexpected appeal of this new location for your character?
Yeah, she's in a, you know, kind of a different headspace, maybe a slight concussion, but just mesmerized by this beautiful show of affection between Justina and Roberto. And heading into that community, I think the appeal is their ability to just hold on to this tradition that their community is intact for the most part. Their history is still with them. Their generations are still there. You know, for Daryl and Carol, it's, you know, pack up with whatever you have on your back and get out and start over somewhere. And they're constantly doing that. So I think that's a lot of the appeal. And also it shows, for the first time in a long time, you're meeting people, you know, they're who they are. They're, you know, like Eduardo or Antonio, for instance, his life is on the walls, his life is on the bookshelves, his life is all around him in his community, and she's intrigued by him and everyone there, that they still have that grasp on who they are and their traditions, and that's something that's very warming to Carol, I think.
David, we're seeing a lot of historical references, you know, steeped into the story this season. Can you talk about this aspect of the Spanish culture and, you know, how and why you decided to include these in the story this season?
Part of the excitement for me from the beginning, and I think for all of us, for Norm, for everybody, was that setting the show in Europe, France first, and then Spain, opened us up to a wealth of history and culture that none of the other spin-offs could do, because they're in America, and America has a short history. America is a baby country, basically. So as we did in France, we thought one of the great signatures of our storytelling was to sort of lean in to being in a place with a great sense of its own history, with a great memory, with a long history. So we found lots of storytelling opportunities in references to the Spanish Civil War, to the Spanish monarchy, to the Basque separatist movement. These are all fascinating historical aspects and cultural aspects of Spain that make the show feel unique, make the show feel distinctive, and just allow us to find great characters and great stories for Daryl and Carol to interact with, to be galvanized by in a way that feels very different from any other Walking Dead show.
So as we talk about you know, those new stories for Daryl and Carol, Norman, you know, so Carol was injured right after she arrived in Spain, and Daryl was determined to find her medical attention, the help she needed to survive. You know, we've seen throughout the years how Daryl and Carol will go to the ends of the world to find each other, to help each other. Can you talk about the state of their relationship right now, as we see them at this point in the season?
Oof. Well, I feel like in France, the last person and the only person that would have mattered in the situation that Daryl was in would have been her. The only person that made a difference in a big way would have been her. And the fact that those two characters sort of can feel what state the other characters are in without judgment, and would go to the ends of the earth to have that other person happy and safe, I think is very rare. And I think they sort of established that bond very early on in the series back in America. But the one person that he needed to see is the person that showed up. And that bond that they have is like that. You know, you could label it this way, label it that way, whatever you want to do, but it's that. And I feel like the things that she goes through, he goes through, and he wants the best for her, she wants the best for him, and they would literally take a bullet for each other. So I feel like when they get there to Spain, he's willing to do anything, as dangerous as it is, to keep her alive and to keep her going. It's funny the way that they work, because one of them is like, no, 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 eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize. And the other one's, but wait, there's real life over here. And he's like, real life, real schmife. We're doing this. But that's what those type of relationships do. They open your eyes to things that you're not paying attention to, and then they mean something. And I feel like the way that these guys have written this series in particular, that's the point, is to learn from each other and evolve. And you're not always open to, you don't always see the doors in front of you. And sometimes you're too scared to go through those doors, so maybe you don't see those doors. And those two characters kind of introduce each other to these different doors. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, let's continue with that as as we're talking about them introducing these things to each other. And also, I think a scene that involves a literal door. Let's watch a sneak peek clip from the next episode entitled El Sacrificio with Daryl and Carol.
We're still taking what we need from here and hitting the road, right?
I'm worried.
Don't be. You know I had to do that.
No, I get it, but...
What? Nothing. Come on. Eyes on the prize. Right?
Daryl.
Just remember, hot dogs.
Daryl?
Well, that's what we're about now. Eating them hot dogs.
And beans.
Look, we're going home, all right? Let's try and stay out of everybody's okay?
I don't know. I got a bad feeling.
Well, those guys ain't coming back. I wouldn't worry about it.
What? That's not even what I'm talking about.
Look, I'm going to the boat. Your job is to get that off the wall.
What, you're gonna steal their solar panel?
Yeah, anything else we need.
Daryl. Daryl. Look, got to thinking last night. I mean, it's great that Justina wasn't chosen. Well, what about Alba?
Alba? Who the f***'s Alba? Hot dogs, remember.
So, Melissa, can you catch everyone up with what the mission of La Ofrenda is and why Carol may have some oppositions to what she sees right now?
Yeah, it's in these communities. Everybody has most people come to some system of survival, and in this one in particular, it's what they call the offering, and it's an annual festival, and they have this competition with running the pigs. They trade one of the daughters for survival provisions. And while Carol can understand that in this world, trade, any kind of thing for survival is extremely important, there is some cause for concern here. And she takes that up with the Maya, and she can see, she can see the devastation in Alba's mother. What to trade another human being for these things does it really have to come to that, and why? So she's going to meddle a little bit, I believe, and find out what that's all about.
And as she's meddling, Daniel, I want to talk a little bit more about these incredible locations. We touched on it earlier, but the location where Solaz del Mar is set. How did you settle on that, and kind of how did you also settle on the other locations that are so central to this season?
Oh my goodness! Well, there's so many, and we're a location show, and for all of us, I think the location is the crucible in which the story has to happen. It's so critical. And we were looking for a medieval town, a town with thousands of years of history, that was fortified, that you imagine could have withstood and been a safe community for people. And we found this town, Sepúlveda, among a lot of others actually to the north of Madrid, that was built up on this mesa. It didn't actually have much of a city wall left, so we in fact built the gates. We built the whole front of the gates there. But what we loved about Sepúlveda, and I'm sure David would agree, is its history and its culture and its community is leaching out of the limestone that it's built on. I mean, everything about that place, it was almost grown there organically. You walk into the town square and there's the mayor's house at the end, which has buildings built on buildings on it, and a stork's nest at the top. I mean, it's just breathtaking. And it was immediately a place we wanted to capture and set our story in. And in fact, the whole community became part of it. A lot of our extras are from that community too. So it had a real veracity to it. It showed us how it should be filmed.
So let's pull back from these kind of specific communities and look at this on more of a macro level. Scott, are there other parts? We've now been in France, we've been in Spain, we were in England for a little bit there. Are there other parts of the world that you would like for Daryl and Carol to explore?
Where wouldn't I? I guess they don't need to go to Canada. I mean, nothing against Canada, but we're looking for contrast here. You're just asking me to dream, and half of what my job is just dreaming up stuff that I would like to see as a fan. So when it comes to contrast, looking for contrasts to Europe, whether it be Africa, whether it be Japan, Korea, mainland China. I can probably think of many more places I would want them to go than not want them to go. And we've gotten so much from these places that they have gone. We've gotten so much story, so much flavor. I see people say that the production values on these shows eclipse anything in the Walking Dead universe. And it's because the places that they go, you can point a camera in any direction and catch something really, really remarkable. Sepúlveda, when I came to visit, it took my breath away. I have filmed Walking Dead shows in former warehouses for kitty litter. So this was pretty damn amazing. We get story from the places we go, and these characters are affected by that story, and that's all you could ask for. And you know what? Even to go geekier on you, also the walkers are affected. So that's super cool.
Right. So, as you said, you point the camera anywhere, and it's phenomenal. As striking, compelling as all those locations are, I'm sure that there are some people who were surprised in that first episode that you had such a brief stay in London. David, you could have said multiple episodes there, if not an entire season. Why did you decide to do such a quick layover in London, as opposed to spending more time there?
Well, a big reason was that we had what we thought was a really good contained story for London, which was very focused, and allowed Daryl and Carol to meet a character and interact with that character played by the great Stephen Merchant, and sort of tell the story of those three people interacting in that period of time. We really wanted to get to Spain for all the reasons we talked about before, because of what we thought it would offer the show and offer Daryl and Carol, but we really wanted to see London during the apocalypse, and we had this story that we thought was contained. And again, we wanted to keep, even within Spain, they're moving as they were in France. So the idea to a large extent was not to let them ever settle down too much. I mean, they have periods of time where Daryl and Carol will stay in a place for various reasons, but the idea was they're constantly moving, and also it was to play the urgency of trying to get home. So that's what that first episode largely focused on, was that Julian as a character offers them a possibility of another way to get home, and they seize it, and that ends up going awry. But we loved seeing London. We loved being in London, as in the story, and we thought it was a nice twist rather than just having them walk straight into Spain, which they could have done. Just walk across the border, which isn't a border anymore because there are no countries. But
yeah. So Norman, after spending 2 seasons filming in France, what's been your favorite part of filming in Spain?
Oof. Like Scott was saying, you could point the camera in any direction, and it's beautiful everywhere. But it's the people, the people, the energies of these towns. Even not even just Belchite is way different than Sepulveda, which is way different than Madrid. Arles is different than Paris. Like, there's this energy with the people that and as a tourist, as Daryl and Carol being tourists, basically, we were sort of taken aback with wonder of talking with new people and their passion and the way that they work, that they talk, that they listen, that they move is very different. France is very different than Spain. There's a color palette in France that's different than it is in Spain. There's a mood that's different. There's an energy that's different. France has a very sort of purple and green and candlelit, romantic sort of feel. Spain is orange and yellow and full of passion, and the people are like that. The actors are like that. The actors work differently. Even having French actors in Spain now, they work differently, and then we work differently. So there's all these personalities at play here, and whether they're getting along or whether they're bumping chests about something, it's the energies are different, So, but there's an enthusiasm and a love for this story that we're telling, and a love for the show that we're making, that everybody, it's the bond that keeps everybody showing up early and leaving late, So, yeah, it's the people to me.
So speaking of those people, Melissa, what has it been like for you working with these talented Spanish actors and bringing them into this world?
Like Norman said, everybody's so enthusiastic, and everyone also brings with them such a rich experience in the filming industry, and the crew is fantastic as well, and everybody's kind and ready to get to work and prepared and with you, and we love that.
That's fantastic. So I know we don't want to spoil anything really big that's coming up this season, but one thing we can talk about is the fact that this season is 7 episodes. That's longer than the first 2 seasons that were 6, and season 4 is going to be even longer with 8 episodes. Obviously, fans want as much of this show as they can get, but David, what was behind the decision to expand the episode count for this season and then even further for next season?
Well, the truth is we always wanted to do more episodes, and we always felt like we had a lot of story to tell and we had a lot of cool things we wanted to do. So it was always a conversation with AMC about how many they wanted and how many they could use, based on their needs. But we always are sort of bursting at the seams because we have so many things that we're excited to do, so many, places we want Dan to take the camera and shoot, and so many, characters that we want to interact with Daryl and Carol. So, it was originally planned to be 6, and then we wrote and shot enough that we could actually turn it into 7 episodes. And then for season 4, we were grateful that AMC saw the light and said, okay, let's do 8.
So speaking of that season 4, you guys announced in July that the series will sadly be ending after season 4, which we're in the process of filming right now. So Scott, how is this third season? Obviously, we have a whole other season to go beyond this, but how is this third season starting to lay the groundwork for this show's conclusion?
There's some practical stuff that comes in, straight up plot. But I think there's also a bunch of emotional stuff that is happening between and to our characters. There's a certain type of growth that's happening, or maybe even fighting that growth, and there's a little bit of a struggle there. But this season, in many ways, season 3 stands on its own. It isn't just like a prequel to 4. There is a complete story that is told, but within there is this growing cumulative weight to what is going to happen in 4. I think I danced around it without spoiling anything. So that's all I try to do.
Expert choreography there. That was terrific. Dan, as we're talking about, you can point the camera anywhere and it's fantastic. But as you know that there is an end game now, do you have kind of a wish list of things, or like, okay, I got to make sure I do this before we get through season 4? Like, do you have kind of wish lists of shots and of scenes and of things you would like to kind of accomplish before we say goodbye for good?
No, I mean just being in France and in Spain and telling the stories that we're telling is wish fulfillment enough. I've got to shoot in places that I never dreamt I would, and we've had whole castles, and we filmed in the Alhambra, which is in later episodes, and the great Moorish palace of Spain, and just some extraordinary places. I mean, the writing and the storytelling keeps taking my breath away, and then it's just my job to capture it in the most cinematic and beautiful way for the stories to play out. No, I feel very sated and satisfied. I'll be sad to stop, because it's, I just had a new outline for a script from David and Jason. I went, oh my God, this is going to be amazing, so it's exciting turning each page and seeing what the challenges are going to be.
And I will say, just one thing I'll add, Jason, to that is, maybe this was made clear already, but we do sometimes get stories from places we want to go, places we want to see. So that's been true in some of the ones Dan mentioned, in Granada and Seville, and it is true with Belchite, where we would sometimes early on in the process we'll go on a location scout. And we'll look around and we'll see a place, and then we'll say, like, we'll say to ourselves, what's a story that could take place in this location, because it'll be so amazing if we can figure it out. So it is kind of symbiotic in that way. The locations feed the story, and then the story builds on the location, and then our great crew and Dan and our other directors go and make it beautiful.
Well, I know we're almost out of time, but I want to close things out by bringing this back to Norman and Melissa for the final question. So now that the two of you know that there's an end game for this story, for this show, how has that been affecting your performances and your approach to filming this final season? Melissa, why don't you go first?
So far, I am just not thinking about that right now, and I'm focusing on the day-to-day and really just absorbing it and being grateful for it and wanting to soak it all up, because I know it's coming to an end.
Norman, how about you?
God, you asked Melissa first. I'm all of those things too. Grateful, and I feel full. I feel satisfied, but I kind of like live it. You know what I mean? Like. If the storyline is full of pain, I'm like full of pain. If there's something happening that I'm not part of, I'm like jealous and angry. Like I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm kind of, it's been such a large part of my life, this show, and my relationship with Melissa and Daryl and Carol, and this story, and Scott and Dan and David, and I feel very satisfied, but I can't see I can't see the end of the road yet. I'm still running down the road. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My lips are chapped and I'm running and I'm sweating and I'm trying to figure it all out and I'm feeling it. So I don't know. Ask me like in December and I could tell you probably a better answer, but very satisfied. It's everything I wanted it to be, and more, and it affects me. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a fantastic note to end on. And while it is sad this is going to be drawing to a close, you know, the good news for fans of the show is they still have the better part of 2 seasons of episodes worth to watch, which is terrific. So thank you to our wonderful panelists. Thank you all so much for being here. Our conversation has got me incredibly excited about the rest of the season. Don't forget to watch AMC and AMC Plus on Sunday nights to catch the season's remaining episodes of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. On behalf of the Paley Center, thank you for joining us for this special PALEYFEST Fall TV Previews conversation with AMC and AMC Plus's The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. You can enjoy more of these programs by clicking the subscribe button below. Thank you, everyone, and happy TV watching.